What is going on, guys? It is Daniel Wright, and you are here listening to another episode of Paving the Way. Happy Wednesday to you, or whatever day it is you're listening to this. I hope your week is going fantastic. I hope you are doing well. And as always, guys, I appreciate you tuning in for another episode. This week, we are talking about the fundamentals always matter. Long story short, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, talking a little bit about life, business, professional, personal stuff, whatever it may be. And the feedback was given like, yeah, a lot of that stuff like is pretty basic and fundamental, basic life advice or the fundamentals. And, it doesn't really matter. And I got to thinking about that. I said, this would make a great paving the way rant. So I'm going to talk a little bit about today why I think the fundamentals in life and in business always matter. Give a few examples, a few points, from my professional experience as well as my personal experience. And hopefully provide a little bit of value to you today. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, guys, welcome back. Hey, so like I was saying before we went into the intro, the fundamentals always matter, right? And so what fundamentals am I talking about? You might be wondering. Well, to give you a little bit of context on the conversation I was having, I was talking with somebody just about kind of where they're at in their life, personally and professionally, where they want to be, where people are around them in their life that are around their age or their place in life, so on and so forth. And we just got to talking a lot about, the basics, right? The basics such as, you make you're laying in the bed that you made, right? You make the bed you lay, whatever it may be. But where you're at's a result of what you've done or what you've decided or how you've thought or decisions you've made, right? We talked about things such as, if you're making decisions today based off of things that happened previously, is that really serving you or is it handcuffing you? Or, situations such as, well, if this happened to you over here, that doesn't always guarantee it's going to be the same way over here. So a lot of these different examples we were talking about, and I'm trying to be vague because I don't need to give out, somebody's, personal life experiences or whatever it may be. But nonetheless, it was a lot of just like the fundamentals, the foundations of growth and progress. And I've been known as somebody for a long time that I've always had an answer, or some people call it an argument, to anything anyone says, that I always find a way to try to prove them wrong or whatever it might be. Recently, when I was having this conversation, I said, I was telling this person, I said, I've always been like this, right? Like I've always had an answer, I've always had an explanation. But now, at this point in my life, personally and professionally, I feel that I'm starting to develop a little bit of proof to back up the reasonings or the answers or the explanations. And what it comes down to, guys, is I have spent years at this point and thousands of hours studying, practicing, and implementing the fundamentals personally and professionally that are the pieces to building the life that I'm currently building, right? And so one of those fundamentals that I'm talking about is relationships and communication in those relationships. So we can talk about personal or professional. I'll stick on more of the professional side of it because I don't want to be try to be looked at as some like relationship expert because that ain't me. But nonetheless, it's the relationships and the communication that we have in those relationships that I think is an absolute fundamental in the way that we grow and progress. So a lot of people live life one of two ways, right? They either have absolutely no idea how to have a conversation, so they just spit things out. They don't think about anything. There is no thought behind the words coming out of their mouth before they hit your ears, and therefore oftentimes create frustration, animosity, passive aggressiveness, defensiveness, all these negative traits and responses to people that don't think about what they're saying to you. Or the flip side of it is they have no idea how to communicate it, so they just don't, right? They sweep it under the rug, pretend nothing ever happened, and carry on like normal business. All until the rug gets full and everything comes blowing up one day, and you're like, where the heck did this come from? So what I've learned on how to do this in a professional sense is being as clear and direct and respectful as possible, right? Clear and direct, that's pretty straightforward. A lot of people in the professional workplace understand that your peers, your bosses, whatever it may be, are going to be clear and direct. The respectful part is where you have to put a little bit of thought into what you're saying. And there's a fine line, right? You don't want to be the person who's beating around the bush and trying to, just sugarcoat everything and blah, 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 and then never actually get to your point. But you still want to maintain a level of respect that person, when they walk away from that conversation, is not going to have a bad taste in their mouth about you. They may not be happy about the situation. They may not be happy about the circumstance, but you, as the person who delivered that message or delivered that feedback, they're not going to have a bad taste in their mouth about you. And so that's why the respect in how you communicate in the relationships that you have, that's how that really makes sure to cultivate those relationships on a day in and day out basis, so that way they can continue to build on each other. Another area of the fundamentals that I like to put a lot of time and energy and focus on is my mental and emotional health, right? Not in a foo-foo, rah-rah, let's all sit around and sing Kumbaya and do a bunch of weird things together, which I have nothing against that if that's what you choose to do. Not my thing. But my mental and emotional health is something that I've put a lot of thought and effort into over the last several years, in a way that I'm training myself how to think, right? I heard it for a long time that some of the best leaders out there, they don't work, 80 hours a week, just jam-packed schedules, one thing after another, one meeting after another. No, they build in time to think. And I'm like, think? I've got bills to pay. Thinking does not pay my bills. So therefore, I do not need to think. I just need to do. Well, anybody who's worked with me or around me for years and years knows that when that was my day-to-day life, I probably wasn't the most pleasant person to be around. As of the last, probably say 2 years, give or take, I've tried to build in more time, maybe not always scheduled, but I try to take advantage of time when it comes available to think a little bit, to process how I'm handling things on a day-to-day basis, to reflect on conversations that I've had with people, to reflect on situations that I've had, or to, in advance, think about how I want to handle something that I do need to address. And so I spend more time thinking and reflecting on what has happened and what needs to happen. And therefore, it allows me to better communicate in the relationships that I have around me, because I've had more time to get clear, right? In addition to that, I also spend more time thinking about what actually matters. At what point is what I'm putting my mental energy into not giving me any sort of an ROI? Right? One of the things that I've talked about recently with some people at work is spending more time on the solutions than the problems, right? We want to make sure that when there's a problem that comes up, something negative that happens, that yes, we want to absolutely make sure we know why it happened, and how to prevent it from happening again. So you have to talk about the problem, right? You have to be direct and clear, as I said earlier. But if you spend too much time just talking and talking and talking about the problem, the negative, and you never actually get to the point of the solution of what you're trying to solve and how you're going to solve it, then eventually you just become so engrossed in the negativity of it that it starts just feeding on itself. And you find yourself in this revolving door of just negativity about the problem. And so one of the things I've tried to train myself to do is get really clear on what the problem is as soon as possible, right? Get that clarity of, okay, this is the problem. This is what happened. This is why it happened. Great. We've got that clarity. Now let's move on to the solution. What do we need to do to prevent this from happening again? Is there anything that we could have done differently in hindsight now that we saw it happen, and move forward? What's the conversation we need to have? What's the process we need to implement? Was this something that was just a one-off thing and we need to say, all right, well, that's the solution for right now. It was a one-off thing. We'll keep an eye on it. If it happens again, then we'll put in time and effort into it, right? One of the things that I've been taught is that some of the best leaders are very quick in making decisions. That doesn't mean they're reckless in making decisions, but they are quick in making decisions, because there are oftentimes so many that need to be made. You do not have time to dwell on the ones that aren't actually that big of a deal. And let's face it, guys, a lot of the decisions, a lot of the problems we encounter aren't actually that important. They feel important in the moment because we have an emotional response to them, but in the grand scheme of things, they aren't actually that important. One of the things I was taught as a young kid said, ask yourself, If this isn't going to matter a year from now, then it probably doesn't need to matter a whole lot right now. Okay. One of the other things that I want to say that is a fundamental that I've worked on in my life that I try to make sure that I keep front of mind is, in addition to my mental and emotional health, also physical health, right? One of the conversations I was having with somebody was about their physical state. And they said that they wanted to be in better physical state. They wanted to look better, to feel better, to get the body or whatever it is that they wanted to get, but they had no interest in doing the work to get it. And I said, okay, well then just choose. Like, what do you mean? I said, well, just choose which one you want. You say you want to be in better physical shape. You want to have, to lose some weight or to tone up or whatever it is, but you don't want to do the work to get it. So you just need to own one or the other. If you're going to own wanting it, then you will do the actions and the work necessary to get it. But if you don't want to do the work and the actions necessary to get it, then you just need to own the fact that you don't actually want to be in better physical shape. And so one of the things that I made sure to put forth, in the front of my priority list is my physical health, right? And it's something that I've had to teach myself to put my money where my mouth is, to put my actions where my mouth is. Because I tell people that, yeah, I try to watch what I eat, or I try to drink all this water, or I take these supplements, or I do this, or I do that. I post the selfies at the gym, right? You've seen them. Or I post the videos while I'm out walking. You've probably watched them. But if I don't actually consistently show up and put in the actions necessary to hold up to that end of the bargain, then eventually I'm not going to have faith in myself, and no one else is going to have faith in myself either. And so when that happens, you just start the downward spiral that if you can't trust you, why would anyone else trust you? So it comes down to really just making a decision, owning what you want and accepting that. Don't lie to yourself, because if you lie to yourself, everyone else is going to call you out on it. And so, guys, what I'm talking about here is the fundamentals always matter. When this person told me, like, yeah, that's all basic life stuff, right? We've all heard it. I said, okay. I said, that'd be like Michael Jordan saying, well, yeah, chest passes. We've all heard it. We know. Doesn't really matter. Well, chest passes in basketball are a pretty fundamental skill that you need to make sure you stay tuned on, right? No different than Tom Brady or Peyton Manning making sure they know how to throw the football properly. It's a fundamental of passing a football, but they have to stay tuned up on it. And so these different skills, or these different thoughts or ideas, or however you want to define them, that you always hear people talking about for life. You always hear people say them. You read them in the books. You see them on the quotes on the memes and things like that. Yeah, whatever, just another piece of life advice. Maybe take a few minutes to think about those things. Instead of just scrolling past it or letting it go in one ear and out the other, take a few minutes and reflect on your own life. Are you implementing the fundamentals day in and day out to be the best version of yourself? Because I can promise you that when life gets busy, when things get hard, when things get hectic, we do not, what's the saying? When things get difficult, we will not raise to the occasion, right? We will not all of a sudden find all these new abilities to pull through. We will fall to the level of our expectations and our standards. And so are your standards at a level that is upholding the basic fundamentals of your life, personally or professionally? Because if they're not, if your standards and your base level expectations are not upholding those fundamentals to a high level, then it's no wonder why you're frustrated in your job, why you're frustrated with your team, why you feel like you can't seem to get ahead in anything that you might try. Because ultimately, you are the result of the decisions that you make. And so if you're not making decisions that uphold the fundamentals required to get the life you desire, then you're the only one to blame. It's no one else's fault but your own. So guys, I know this was a little bit scattered. You're probably sitting here wondering, what conversation did I have? Well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. But I would challenge you to ask yourself, what are the fundamentals in my life required to get the results that I want out of it? Because at the end of the day, whether you're 20, 30, 50, 60, or 70 years old, doesn't really matter. God willing, you have a tomorrow, and your tomorrow is yours to write today. So make sure that you're making the decisions, living to the standards and the expectations that you know you need to have, so that way your tomorrow not just meets, but exceeds the desires you have for it. Guys, you always know that I am a firm believer that we are all more capable than what we believe in ourselves. I challenge you to start becoming a little bit more critical of yourself. Hold yourself to a little bit higher standard. Show up when you don't want to show up. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Get those basic life fundamentals ironed out, execute on them day in and day out, and see what kind of differences you're going to have in your life. Because I've been doing those pretty religiously for the last couple of years. Although my life's not perfect by any means, I definitely like the way that it's going. So that's why I wanted to share this message with you today. As always, I appreciate you tuning in. If you want to see the behind the scenes or the proof of what I'm talking about and all these videos I put out, all these podcasts I put out, go ahead and follow us over on any of our social media pages, our YouTube pages, the company pages for Proline. Always have updated content on them. New videos are dropping every Friday. But we just like to put that stuff out there so that way you can see what all this stuff is, the results of what I'm talking about, right? The fundamentals that I'm living in my life is what creates this business that you can follow its journey and all the people who are in it. So I challenge you to do that. Always appreciate the comments. Always appreciate the feedback, whether it's on those videos or here on the podcast. I do want to get some more Q&As going. So if you have any questions or feedback or things that you would like me to discuss on here, drop them in the comments, shoot me a message, whatever it might be. I want to get on those. So as always, guys, have a great rest of your week. For those of you here in the United States, have a fantastic Independence Day. Stay safe. I hope you spend it with family and friends, doing whatever it is you like to do, wherever it is you like to do it at, with whoever it is you like to do it with. Take care, guys. Let me know if you need anything.